Alright YouTubers, how you diddling? This is the Disposalist, and this will be my third beginner's guide for Battlefield 1. In this video I'm going to talk in some more detail about the underlying characteristics of your weapons. I touched upon in my previous video, in more general terms, how to choose weapons, how to compare them using this UI, but as I mentioned then, there's a lot more detail underlying, so I'm going to cover some more of that to help you choose which particular weapons to choose for each class. In this video I'm just going to talk about the medic and just compare the medic rifles. The same techniques, the same information will be relevant to all the other classes. So I'm going to talk about each weapon in turn and explain each of the underlying characteristics and mechanics as I come across them. I should give credit at this point to Simthic.com. Most of the information that I'm summarizing and presenting here is going to be gleaned from the mass of data that those guys have at their site. And if you want to look at some of that underlying data to make your further analyses yourself, then go over to simthic.com. There's more information there than you could ever need. Right, first up, the Gotti trench. That's the trench variant of the Gotti rifle, and as it says here, it improves accuracy when hip firing, and that's true of all trench variants. So that phrase there includes accuracy and hip firing, which are the first two characteristics I'll talk about. Accuracy you'd think is a pretty straightforward characteristic, but when you talk about accuracy in Battlefield 1 game mechanics, you need to talk about the underlying characteristic of spread. And spread can be a bit of a confusing term. It's perhaps easier to think about when you're firing machine guns. As you hold down that trigger, the compounding effect of the inaccuracies of the weapon, firing multiple bullets per second even, you can see that the bullets spread away from the point you're originally aiming at. So, as a Battlefield 1 term, spread means that due to the inaccuracy of the weapon you're holding, when you put the sights over your target and pull the trigger, the bullet may not go exactly where you're aiming. Simple as that. But to complicate things a little, the spread characteristic has several aspects. The size of spread varies between different weapons, but also the direction. Some weapons can have greater horizontal spread and some vertical. A more important aspect perhaps is spread recovery. When a weapon is fired, it recovers in a split second from the inaccuracy caused by spread. But if you fire very quickly, and with a machine gun of course you don't have a choice over how quickly the shots are fired, then the inaccuracy will compound itself, making your aim worse and worse and worse. So obviously a weapon with a quick spread recovery will be more accurate when firing quickly. Another aspect is the first shot spread can actually be slightly different from the rest of the shots in a quick volley, usually slightly worse. So now, circling back to the Gotti trench rifle, the improved accuracy when hip firing that it's talking about is the size of the spread. That size is reduced compared to other variants, and hip firing it's talking about simply not aiming down the sights, so when you're looking at your normal crosshairs as you're running about. So moving on to the Gotti Optical, and things should get a bit quicker. I'm not going to re-describe each characteristic as I go. This says it improves aimed accuracy, so we're talking about spread again, but when aiming down the sights, not when hip firing, when using the sights. So specifically we're talking about spread size being decreased using this rifle. We're also talking about the spread increase per shot being reduced. So it's the other side of the coin from the spread recovery I was talking about with the trench. The spread increase per shot means when you fire rapidly, the amount of inaccuracy that is compounded with this rifle is reduced. So you can fire faster at the same accuracy, and you have to rest less time between shots to maintain accuracy. So the last Gotti variant is the factory. I believe this is what medics begin with. It regains accuracy more quickly due to lower weight. And what that means, we're talking about accuracy and recovery. So the spread recovery is actually twice as fast than the trench and the optical versions. So this gun should recover from the inaccuracies of rapid fire much more quickly than the other two variants. Also, it's talking about an increase in control. You can see compared to the other two, the control indicator is higher. This is because it also increases recovery from recoil, and recoil is another characteristic to talk about at this stage, I guess. What recoil means is that when you're firing, your crosshairs actually move. Your weapon moves in your hands, and the crosshairs will actually move away from where you were holding them. So it's not the innate inaccuracy of the gun, it's not the bullet flying away from the crosshairs. What it is the actual crosshairs themselves moving. Recoil similarly has underlying aspects. The first shot can be different, the size and the direction can be different weapon to weapon, and also the recovery from recoil, the time it takes for your weapon to settle down after firing, can vary weapon to weapon, and that recovery weight is what it's talking about here when accuracy is gained more quickly due to the lower weight of the factory variant. So, just a very brief summary before we move on. The Gotti trench has improved accuracy on hip firing. That means reduced spread when not aiming down the sights. The Gotti optical has improved accuracy when aiming, so reduced spread size when aiming down the sights. The Gotti factory regains accuracy more quickly, which means increased spread recovery and increased recoil recovery between shots. So I'm going to move on to the SelfLoading, but I'm going to continue talking about the differences between the variants, and I'll cover the differences between the actual rifle types afterwards. So the next variant to talk about is the Marksman. I'm going to use the SelfLoading M1916 Marksman to do that. And you can see it says this improves aim's accuracy while stationary. Now the Marksman actually has all the benefits of the Optical in that the size of spread is reduced generally, but the Marksman above and beyond the Optical also, when not moving, has additional spread reduction. Simple as that. It obviously also has a scope sight rather than the Optical, which has a sort of lens ladder sight. So in order to talk about the next variant, I need to jump to the M1907 SelfLoading Sweeper. Now the Sweeper is a bit of a special variant. I think there's a Sweeper shotgun in the assault weapons, but I'm not sure that's related variant wise. So as I say, special case. What the Sweeper does is has fully automatic as default. You can see it's got both automatic and single shot fire modes, but automatic is the default, and that tends to be the reason people choose it. You can just hold down the trigger and it fires as fast as it can. Additional to that, underlying that you may not appreciate, it says suited for assaulting. So what that actually means as far as statistics is concerned, it has less upwards recoil, so it doesn't buck upwards in your hand so much. You don't have to compensate for that so much when you're firing fast, and also slightly less spread increase per shot, so it becomes inaccurate less quickly, if that's not a confusing way to put it. So when you're firing fast, it's more accurate and it bucks upwards less than other rifles. And to cover the next variant, I'm going to talk about the Mondragon Storm. So the Storm variant, it says reduces recoil while firing, and this is a simple one because that's what it does. It significantly reduces the upwards and the left and right effects of the recoil of your rifle. It's about half compared to the Mondragon Optical. So the next rifle to talk about is the Sniper variant, and this is the Mondragon Sniper. Now the Sniper variant is actually extremely similar to the Marksman. It isn't strictly a sniper scope. The scope is the same zoom level as the Marksman. The only difference between the two, aside from a very slight further decrease in spread, in the size of spread, is that you can place a bipod with the Sniper rifle. So the bipod's a very important thing to talk about in general, and the bipod appears on several weapons across the different classes. The bipod is easy to explain though. Basically, when you can place the bipod on a window ledge, when you're lying down, whatever, when you can place it, it almost eliminates the effects of recoil that you would otherwise experience with that weapon. And it totally eliminates the effects of sway, which is the natural movements of your soldier as he breathes and tries to hold his weapon steady. You'll notice this especially with zoomed weapons. Obviously the effect is literally magnified. You can see that your crosshairs move in a slow figure 8 motion with your soldiers breathing. So when you place it on the bipod, that is eliminated. And that's your sniper rifle. So the final variant to talk about is the Autoloading 8.25 Extended. And the obvious advantage of the Extended is that it has an extended magazine. It has 16 bullets in that magazine as opposed to the normal 5 for the Autoloading 8. Underlying though, there are also other differences with the Extended, possibly due to the added weight of the magazine there. Oops. What you see from the Extended is it has less upwards recoil and slightly less increase in spread per shot when hip firing. So much like the Sweeper, it bucks around less in your hands and will handle being fired faster better. Right, before I move on to talk about the rifles themselves and compare the rifles themselves, I'm just going to briefly recap and show you the sights. Excuse the pun. So the trench variant, it reduces spread when hip firing. It has iron sights and varies between 1 and 2 times magnification. The Optical reduces spread when aiming down the sights. It has a ladder sight with a lens reticle at the end. Some people like these, some people don't. It certainly changes your target acquisition. Things can move down where the iron sights, they would disappear. You have a bit more target acquisition with these, but some just do not get on with the amount of space that the ladder sight hides when you're aiming. They have a magnification between 1.25 and 2.5, slightly higher than the base infantry trench or factory variants. So the factory has the same iron sights with 1 to 2 times magnification, and factories recover from spread and recoil more quickly, so to maintain accuracy when firing faster. The marksman variant has a scope like a sniper rifle. The magnification runs from 2.5 to 4. It has various reticles, and marksman variants in general reduce spread like the Optical and have the further reduction when you're not moving, and of course oh no, they don't have the bipod. What does have a bipod, of course, is the sniper rifle. So same characteristics as the marksman, but has a bipod additionally to eradicate sway and greatly reduce recoil. The Sweeper has less upward recoil and less spread increase per shot to suit rapid fire. It uses iron sights, 1 to 2 times magnification, and of course has that automatic mode as default. The Storm has less recoil in all directions, but other than that is an infantry rifle with iron sights and between 1 and 2 magnification. And finally, the Extended is that special version which, much like the Sweeper, has less recoil, upward recoil, and less spread increase per shot suiting rapid fire, but is an infantry rifle between 1 and 2 times zoom and your normal iron sights. The only other peculiarity I should mention for the Autoloading Extended is that it is a .25 version and does slightly less damage than the other two. So now I'm going to look at each rifle in turn and hopefully tell you stuff that you couldn't just read from looking at this interface. And I'm going to compare each against the Gotti to give you an idea of the underlying mechanics that are different between each rifle. So firstly, the Gotti. It's a good all-rounder. DICE has done a good job of giving you a medic this as your starter rifle. I believe the factory is your starter rifle. One thing people don't notice often is that it has 2 fire modes. It defaults to the single fire like all the other medic rifles, most of the other medic rifles, but it also has an automatic fire mode. Pressing V on the PC changes its fire mode. Sorry, not sure what it is on the console. So then when you hold the trigger down, it will fire rounds as fast as it can. Obviously the factory variant, due to its regaining accuracy more quickly, will cope with that sort of treatment better than the other Gottis, But yeah, Gotti, a good all-rounder. So now I'll compare the others. So yeah, I'm going to compare the SelfLoading 1916 factory now with the Gotti factory to give you an idea of how those two rifles differ, of what makes the SelfLoading special. You can see over here in the charts in the game interface that it gives you a rough indication of the differences, and I'm going to just explain using the SimThick data underneath exactly what's going on there. So you can see it says that the SelfLoading's got higher damage, and it has indeed. The minimum damage is 35 as compared to 28, and the maximum damage is 40 as compared to 38. Now it's that minimum damage that's important though, because what that means is at distance, after the damage drops off at 35 meters or so, you need 4 shots to kill with the Gotti and only 3 to kill with the SelfLoading, so that can make quite a difference. You can see there it's talking about accuracy being greater with the SelfLoading, and indeed aiming down the sights when you're standing still, it's quite a lot more accurate. But hip firing, it's more accurate with the Gotti. In fact, aiming down the sights while moving is more accurate with the Gotti. So your Gotti is for hip firing and moving, and the SelfLoading is much more accurate when you're stood still aiming down the sights. So the control indicator there would show that SelfLoading has better recoil characteristics than the Gotti. Looking at the SimThick data, it shows the Gotti should have better recoil characteristics, and I just tried them out in game to double check that, and to be honest I couldn't tell an awful lot. If anything, the sights moved less on the SelfLoading. So I'd be very surprised if DICE's own underlying data is incorrect. So yeah, perhaps control is better with the SelfLoading. Perhaps there's something wrong with the SimThick data there. It's something I'll take up with them. In the meantime, the control indicator is showing, yeah, that the SelfLoading has better recoil characteristics than the Gotti. And the other thing to note with the SelfLoading is the rate of fire. You can see the rate of fire with Gotti is 300 rounds per minute. That's 5 bullets per second. It's actually difficult to get that many out per second. The Gotti certainly does fire faster than the SelfLoading. It's got a rate of fire of 225, but that's not necessarily an advantage. The intrinsic rate of fire of 225, it actually feels reasonably good. It means you intrinsically, as part of the weapon, are giving it more time to settle between shots, so you're not compounding your inaccuracies and your recoil on top of one another. So yeah, while the Gotti can fire faster, that's not always a good thing. So it's got 300 rounds per minute against 225, but you need to consider other things than that pure number when it comes to comparing the rifles. Ammunition is another difference there. The SelfLoading uses a 26 bullet magazine as opposed to the Gotti, which uses 2 5-bullet clips when it's reloading. The magazine reload is the same every time. That's the important thing. You've used 1 bullet. If you've used 25 bullets, then when you reload it takes the same amount of time, and you don't actually throw bullets away. It magically retains bullets. So if you reload after 10 to make sure you've got a lot of bullets in reserve, you don't throw away 16 bullets, but you end up with 26 in your magazine, which is quite handy. Oh, and something I almost forgot, and people often do, is the bullet velocity. The SelfLoading has a muzzle velocity of 800 meters per second, the Gotti of 700. That doesn't sound like much of a difference, but I just did some quick calculations, and at 50 meters, a target at 50 meters, if it were running, the difference between the two bullets arriving would be something like 9 milliseconds, and for a running target 9 milliseconds is about 5 centimeters of movement, and so yeah, that could be the difference between a hit and a miss. High muzzle velocity does make a difference. Okay, so moving on to the 1907 SelfLoading factory, comparing the 1907 SelfLoading against the Gotti. You can see it's got less damage and less control, and actually looking at SimThick, the similarities are many, but the differences are obvious. And indeed, damage is reduced on the SelfLoading, the 1907 SelfLoading. The damage is 23 minimum damage on the SelfLoading as compared to 28 on the Gotti, and this is significant because it means 5 hits to kill at distance, and looking at the chart there, that distance drops off at just over 25 meters, so significantly worse range ability. Now the damage is greater close up, 42 against 38, but that's still a 3-hit kill, and so that's why it's saying that the self-loading has less damage effectively. Also, the muzzle velocity is greater on the Gotti. The self-loading 977 self-loading has the 570 meters per second against 700, and as we've just explained, that can be quite a few centimeters against a sprinting target. So, again, at range, the SL's not looking particularly great. Also, the Gotti has better recoil characteristics. Again, making the SL difficult at range. It will have worse recoil than the Gotti. Really, you're giving up quite a lot for the SL having that 21 bullet magazine. And for the sweeper version, if you take it, yeah, you're getting automatic fire and a 21 bullet magazine. But you can have automatic fire with the Gotti. So yeah, on the whole, in summary, you're giving up a lot for a 21 bullet magazine on that SL if you were to choose it over the Gotti. Next up we have the Mondragon, and to compare the Gotti and the Mondragon we're having to use the optical versions just to eliminate the variant differences. So we can see that damage and accuracy is up, hipfire and control is down, and this is actually very similar to the SelfLoading apart from the peculiarity with the control stat there. We are seeing less recoil with the Gotti, and we are seeing better hipfire and moving aimed ability with the Gotti, but we're seeing more damage with the Mondragon. Notably, it's doing more minimum damage, 35 as opposed to 28. So again, like the SelfLoading, it's a 3-hit kill at range as opposed to the Gotti, which is 4. We've also got 800 milliseconds against 700 milliseconds. The Mondragon being better there. Less spread when aiming and not moving, much like the SelfLoading, and a bit of a faster reload. But that's insignificant mostly. So similar differences between the Gotti and the Mondragon. I think what we really need to do is compare the SelfLoading and the Mondragon then. So let's do that. I'm going to compare the SelfLoading Optical against the Mondragon Optical, and it's a bit of a revelation. They're actually very similar. You can see it says that the control of the Mondragon is reduced and the rest is similar, and if I look at my Synthic data, indeed I can see that the only difference between the SelfLoading and the Mondragon is the SelfLoading obviously has a much bigger magazine. It uses 26 bullet magazine as opposed to the 10 bullet 2.5 clip 10 bullet reserve. But the Mondragon has a slightly higher fire rate, 257 against 225, and slightly less recoil to the left and right. And that is it. That is the difference between the SelfLoading and the Mondragon. Okay, moving back to the Gotti factory to compare it to the Autoloading 8. So the 3.5 factory version is what we can compare it against, and they are really quite similar. Obvious differences are the Autoloading Model 8 has 5 bullet clip, a single 5 bullet clip, whereas the Gotti has a 10 bullet reserve with 2 5 bullet clips. The Gotti has 700 millisecond muzzle velocity against 660. That's pretty similar for the Autoloading. It has slightly less upwards recoil, the Gotti. There's only slight. Now, the Autoloading has a greater maximum damage. Oh yes, you can see on the bar chart over there that it's got a slightly higher damage. So yeah, the maximum damage is 42. It has the same number of bullets to kill with that, and the minimum damage is 30 against 28. So again, the same number of bullets to kill, but a slight damage increase. That rate of fire is greater though on the Autoloading, and that is significant. 360 against 300. That does make quite a difference. Yeah, you're talking 6 bullets in a second rather than 5. And less recoil to the left and right. Significantly less recoil to the left and right with the Autoloading. So yes, you're basically trading a smaller bullet reserve, 5 bullets against 10, for something that's faster, does a little more damage and less recoil. Okay, so we're getting there now. The SelfLoading 1906 factory, which I have similar issues when trying to compare it against the Gotti factory. It's turning out that the Gotti, the SL and the Autoloading 8 are sort of a little family in themselves, and the SelfLoading Mondragon are their own similar weapon. So I was going to compare it against the SelfLoading 1916 factory, but as it turns out it's most similar to the SelfLoading 1916 Optical. And when I compare the SelfLoading 1916 Optical against the 1906 factory, there are very few differences. In Simthic, what I actually see is the only advantage of the 1916 is the larger magazine, though that is quite an advantage. A 26 bullet magazine that always reloads at the same speed no matter how many bullets you've used, against a 5 bullet clip that's quite a slow reload is quite a difference. But then the 1906 factory is just the same, but with a higher fire rate and significantly less recoil, even less recoil than the Mondragon Storm has over its variants, and that's the primary purpose of the Storm, is the recoil. So it's like the 1906 factory is like the SelfLoading 1916 Optical with super Storm options added on. So a pretty impressive weapon if you can live with that 5 bullet slow reloading clip. So finally, we're looking at the RSC 1917. This rifle came along with the They Shall Not Pass downloadable content. Now, if I'm going to compare that against the SelfLoading 1916 factory, that's the sort of nearest comparison. And you can see from the charts over on the right, there's a small increase in damage for the RSC. Well, that belies quite an important difference in damage, actually. If you look at the Simthic data, what you're seeing is 53 damage at close range versus 40, and that's quite a large increase. And the significance of that is it's a 2-hit kill, which is a very large difference between two rifles. So a 2-hit kill for the RSC at close range. Its minimum damage is also greater, 38 against 35, but that's still a 3-hit kill at distance. The other significant difference, obviously, is the 26 bullets in the SelfLoading 1916. The RSC has only a 6-bullet clip, sort of a clip magazine hybrid, and it's a little bit slower to reload, but then you're not really looking for speed, you're looking for accurate 2-bullet kills there. These higher muzzle velocity on the SelfLoading, but it's still 720 against 800, 720 with the RSC. The other significant difference is recoil. You are taking a bit of a dive in the recoil figures for the RSC, but again, with that slow rate of fire that it has, the RSC has 164 there against 225. With that slow rate of fire, you can compensate for that recoil between shots anyhow. So yeah, the RSC, a big hitter at close range. That 2-hit kill is a significant change. So while making this video, I've made a couple of realizations I hadn't really put together before. That the medic rifles sort of appear in two different families. You've got the Gotti family, along with the Gotti, the SL and the Autoloading 8. They have better hip fire and aim while moving down the sights, but they trade that for a 4-hit kill at range. And then you've got the Selby family, the Selby, the Mondragon, the Selby 06 and the RSC. They've got better ranged ability, a 3-hit kill at range, and better accuracy when not moving and looking down the sights. So that's the two families. Within those families, against the Gotti, the SL there, you're basically trading some ranged ability and damage for a bigger magazine. So further ranged ability reduction, but a big magazine is the basic choice for the SL over the Gotti. And the Autoloading 8, there you are again trading some bullets, 5 bullets there in the factory and marksman version. You still got 16 in the extended, but you're trading some bullets for a little extra speed and damage against the Gotti. And with the Selby family against the Selby 16, your Mondragon there, you're trading some bullets, so you've got 10 bullets there against 26, trading some bullets for a little extra rate of fire and some better horizontal recoil. And the 1906 there, you are comparing against the Selby Optical. You're trading a whole load of bullets. You've now got a 5-bullet clip there with a slow reload, for some extra rate of fire, quite a good improvement in rate of fire and much better recoil characteristics. And the RSC there, you're trading a whole load of bullets. You've got a 6-bullet clip there. You're also trading low rate of fire and worse recoil, but you're getting that big 2-hit kill at shorter range. Well, 50 meters, that's not really short range. You got that big 2-hit kill, but you're trading quite a lot for it. Okay there, YouTubers. Well, hopefully I've covered everything I need to give you enough underlying information to make a really good, proper, informed decision about which rifle you're going to choose. I'm not going to try and tell you which one is best for you. One thing I've appreciated about Battlefield 1 is that there's a good variety of weapons available for any situation you're going to find yourself in, and for your own personal playing preferences. Hopefully now you've got the information of the underlying characteristics of those weapons, and you can choose. Good luck with that. Please leave me a thumbs up if you liked this video. Please don't leave me a thumbs down unless you feel you really need to. Please do leave me any comments. I'd love to hear from you about ideas for improvements, ideas for other videos, especially if you make your own. Thanks very much. Cheers, YouTubers. See you next time.